Then Hansaduta Prabhu, he wanted to begin like his, like, well, I guess Prabhupada's idea, world traveling Sankirtan. And he asked Prabhupada if he could have me for his party, and Prabhupada agreed. So, I was a little disappointed because I thought I would be traveling with Prabhupada. He would be training me. But I thought, Prabhupada, whatever Prabhupada does is the best for everyone. So I accepted that. But in those, what to speak of computers in those days, you could hardly get a typewriter in India. So I just went out and bought some lined paper and pens and pencils, and I was going to follow Prabhupada's instructions to write. But then soon after, our first stop was, I think, Agra and Aligarh, 2 places, and then Prabhupada said that they're having a Pandal program in Bombay, and the whole party should come to Bombay. So we went to Bombay, and Shamsundar Prabhu was the temple president, and he was organizing the Pandal. And he was like, dividing up the duties, and he said that I should collect for the Pandal. So I said, well, Srila Prabhupada told me that I should write. He said, well, you can write any time. That this is one time that we can go to anyone's office and ask for money. So you should do this now. So I thought about it. I thought 2 things. One, what he said made sense, and the other is Prabhupada told us to cooperate with our authorities. So I did. Then Srila Prabhupada came, and as usually happened, when he would arrive, he sat down in his room, and the devotees crowded in, and he was like smiling and beaming and glancing and exchanging little words with different devotees. And then he came to me. He said, so, Giriraj, how is your writing going? And I was like so flustered. I couldn't speak. I said, all right, we'll talk later. So then later he, called for me, and he said, so how's your writing going? So I told him what happened, what Shamsundar said, and my reasoning that it did make sense. It was like a special occasion. We can just go into anyone's office and ask for an advertisement for the souvenir. And also that Srila Prabhupada had said that we should cooperate with our authorities. But still, I wasn't sure if I'd done the right thing or not, so I was very apprehensive sitting in front of Srila Prabhupada. And then I said, did I do the right thing? Then he said that you can suspend the order of the spiritual master, but you can never neglect it. And then he gave his own example. He said that my Guru Maharaj instructed me to write, but I've been so busy traveling and preaching in India, I've hardly had time to write. So you can suspend the order, but you can't neglect it. So I thought that was a perfect instruction, and I felt Prabhupada understood the situation and appreciated my conclusion, and yeah, so I think that's yeah, we have to sort of do both. Like in the fifth canto, there's the story of Priyavrata, and Narada was, anyway, so he was receiving conflicting instructions. Anyway, I'll tell it. So Priyavrata was the son of Manu. And so Narada preached to him that now he should give up being the king and, renounce and take to Krishna consciousness. But Manu himself wanted to renounce, and he wanted Priyavrata to stay in his position, to enable him to leave. And so Priyavrata was in a dilemma, because Narada was an authority and Manu was an authority. They're both Mahajans. And so what to do? They're both authorized, and they were giving apparently contradictory instructions. And it became so tense that Lord Brahma came to help resolve the situation. And he is also a Mahajan, but he was superior to all of them. He's the father of Narada, father of Manu. And basically, it was an intricate discussion, but Srila Prabhupada said that one should be intelligent enough to satisfy the instructions of different authorities whose instructions appear to be opposed to each other. Now, what happened in this case was that Lord Brahma said that you should continue to rule, because it's Manu's time to renounce, and he needs you to look after the kingdom, which was the Earth planet, and everything. You should marry and do everything that you need to fulfill that duty, that responsibility. But internally you should be detached. And that, and in the end, when your time comes, and you can also leave. So, although apparently Narada was instructing him to renounce, and Manu was instructing him to stay and rule, but internally he could stay and rule and still be renounced. So, or one could, looking at it from another perspective, say that he did follow Narada's instruction, but not immediately. He suspended it, but eventually he followed it. Because while he was ruling, he was married and he was apparently enjoying the opulence of the kingdom. But when the time came, that sense of renunciation awakened in his heart, and he left it all. Yes.
Thank you so much for so beautifully building up this point of the need of following instructions, how practically to, in our practical situations, to live our life following these instructions. But Maharaj, I have a practical problem that although you said that it begins by our faith on following the instructions, that we gradually lead to love for the spiritual master and attachment to the spiritual master. But Maharaj, practically it happens that we have our attachment right now to sense gratification. In a given situation, we may know that this is instruction, like in the case of Prabhupada Maharaj, you said, since he was instructed by Brahma to get married and rule, since he didn't have attachment to being a renunciant, he was neutral to both. If he was ordered to marry, he was ready to marry. If he was ordered to be renunciant, he was ready to be renunciant. In our case, Maharaj, the situation is not so, where we have our raga dveshas, our attachments and aversions. So it happens sometimes that although we know this is the order of the spiritual master, but then we have some attachment which is different from the order, and that is the time when, which is heavier, if the attachment to sense gratification is more than the attachment to follow the instructions, then we give in to the sense gratification. And although there is intellectual faith that my advancement depends on following the instruction, but because of that attachment, that faith remains intellectual and we give in to the sense gratification. So Maharaj, how that intellectual faith can actually become practical or realized faith? Or in other words, how when there is a dilemma, where, not a dilemma, because we know the instruction, but then how to overcome that attachment based on the instruction at that time. Like Maharaj, you gave your own example of how you were allured once by that situation in Bombay, and you understood that it won't please Srila Prabhupada. So it was such a strong test of the material energy, but just because you knew that it won't please Srila Prabhupada,
well, that it would hurt him. It would hurt him and hurt the mission. Yeah.
But Maharaj, you could overcome that attachment based on this feeling that it would hurt Srila Prabhupada. But Maharaj, practically I can say in my case, even if I know this would hurt my spiritual master, I don't care, because my attachment to sense gratification is stronger than my feeling for the spiritual master. So Maharaj, how?
To me, it comes back to association. His Holiness Shivaram Swami wrote a book called Shuddha Bhakti Chintamani. And in the book, and he follows in this regard a discussion about Shuddha Bhakti Vinod Thakur, but he discusses how one gets the Bhakti Lata Bij, the seed of pure devotional service. But one can sort of adulterate that. And so although the seed from the spiritual master was for pure devotional service, one ends up in some variety of mixed devotional service. And then he discusses what is the process to come back to pure devotional service. And there are many details and categories and distinctions. But the common solution for all is to associate with pure devotees. by associating with pure devotees, one can, come, maybe gradually, but come back to the position of pure devotional service, having started in that position and then having become weak and come into some variety of mixed devotional service or bhakti abhas, just different categories. So, I mean, it's a matter of sincerity. Srila Prabhupada, I think it was in Vrindavan, Srila Prabhupada was discussing with some disciples about devotees who were deviating. And one disciple said that, we have to educate them better. And another disciple said we have to supervise them better. And Srila Prabhupada replied, even if you educate them and supervise them, they can still cheat if they're not sincere. They have to be sincere, and if they're not sincere, they can still cheat. And he gave the example of drinking water underwater on a fasting day. That, one goes to the river to take bath on a fasting day, and then while taking one's holy dip, one drinks water. And he knows, but still he does it. And even if there are people with him, but nobody will be able to catch him because he's underwater. So the main thing is sincerity. So then how to develop the sincerity? So Srila Prabhupada has given different answers on different occasions. One is by following all of my instructions, however big or small. That was the one I heard first, and that was the one that guided me. But later, I heard another one, which was by associating with sincere devotees. And, my ability to follow a lot of the orders, however big or small, in a way seems less at this age than it was 40 years ago. So now, like associating with sincere devotees, that sounds like a good one. And of course, that association will inspire you to follow the most important instructions: chanting, hearing, serving, cooperating. There are other devotees. There's other Prabhupada disciples here. Maybe we should hear their realizations. I'm sure they have many realizations.
My take on that is that Krishna consciousness is a gradual process, and doesn't mean that if you haven't attained what you think is the perfectional stage, you should start self-flagellating yourself. You pick yourself up by the bootstraps, as they say, and you carry on, and you don't give up. You just remain determined. Because we're in a material body, which comes with strengths and weaknesses, then that's going to affect, we're given a set of ears, eyes, nose, and so on. So we have different ways of seeing things. And it may seem to conflict with the instructions we're given, but if we just keep the goal in mind and keep determined that, all right, I'm going to make mistakes. But the thing is that if you make a mistake, you just correct the mistake and you go on. How many devotees we've had? This was a major lesson I heard when I was in Nairobi from Brahmananda, who was a Maharaj at the time. He said, so if somebody falls down, you get up and you continue on. So maybe we may not be talking about something as extreme as falling down. We just kind of, our mind wanders. Maybe we're not thinking of the mantra when we're chanting our japa, but we bring it back. And we keep on bringing it back. And we might not keep our mind on the instructions our spiritual master gave us, but we bring our minds back. And maybe sometime you were explaining, there might be some time when you have to follow some other instruction, but you don't neglect the instruction. That's kind of my idea.
That's good. That's good. Lakshmi Moni Mataji.
For me, the association of devotees and also sorting out in any given situation, understanding what is the most important, the principle that I have to take up in this situation, which will get me over the hump that I'm facing, and kind of using either my intelligence or finding someone else who has more intelligence to help me choose those instructions which will give me the strength to get over the weakness that I'm experiencing or that I might experience.
And you'll get a lot of free advice too.
Yeah, you get a lot of free advice. You have as many doctors as you have friends. So you have to choose your friends. I think that actually choosing your association is one of the most valuable choices that you make in spiritual life. And if you choose your friends, your association carefully, then that'll help you in every other circumstance.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Any other volunteers to share realizations? Well,
One thing is that sometimes we tend to look at circumstances and look for black and white situations, but I find that rarely things are black and white. There are almost always multiple shades of every color, passion, ignorance, and goodness. And so each circumstance requires prayer and thought and meditation and, just each circumstance requires a lot of thought, a lot of prayer to move forward. Sometimes you have to move really slow so you don't get yourself in too much trouble while you're figuring it out.
that's true. We may have, different degrees of magnitude, but 10, 20, 30, 40 decisions pending. And you don't want to make a mistake. There will be consequences, but you might not get the answer right away. You pray, you chant, you take counsel from the best people for the purpose. I mean, there's one nice verse that Mother Parvati's, or Parvati Prabhu's statement reminded me of from the 11th canto. Begins Yadrichayan Madkatado, which means having, Krishna saying, having awakened faith in my pastimes, knowing that all sense gratification leads to misery, but still not being able to give it up, my devotees continues in devotional service in a happy mood, while repenting his inability to follow and making every effort to follow properly. So, and in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says that this is the beginning of pure devotional service. The idea is that no matter what, the devotee will not give up devotional service, even if, he falls down. And then this Prita is in a happy mood, like the devotee continues in a happy mood because of his relationship with Krishna. He knows that Krishna is his Father, and Krishna will always support him. And it's also mentioned in the purport that he knows that he cannot overcome this weakness by his own strength. He can only overcome it by Krishna's mercy. And when Krishna gives that mercy, depends on Krishna. It's not in his hand. It's in Krishna's hand. And so he's patient, and he doesn't mind how long it takes, but he is confident that one day Krishna will give his mercy. So he's happy. Lord Chaitanya had one. Anyway, about being patient. Lord Chaitanya had a disciple named Mukunda. And Mukunda, he was sometimes associating with Vaishnavas and sometimes associating with Mayavadis. And so when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was, meeting with his devotees, he forbade Mukunda to enter. He said that on the one hand he's offering me flowers, and on the other hand he's hitting me on the head with a club. So I will not see him. So when Mukunda heard this, he was devastated. And he said, I'll never see Mahaprabhu. So Mahaprabhu said, after 10 million births, I'll see him. So when Mukunda heard that, he became jubilant. That, he will see me again. He'll see me again. And then Mahaprabhu, as the omniscient Lord within the heart, and Mukunda was literally dancing in ecstasy. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu within Mukunda's heart understood. And then he said, okay, call Mukunda. So that what was meant to be 10 million births became 10 seconds because of the way Mukunda accepted it. So, yeah, patience, enthusiasm, confidence, all these are required.
One thing I thought of in relation to what this Guru was saying is that we have moments of weakness, but in moments of strength, we should make arrangements in our lives so that our moments of weakness are minimized. And the tendencies that cause us to become weak are we're protected against those. So we should, we should choose our life situation, arrange our life in such a way that we don't fall prey to our weaknesses very easily. We arrange things to protect ourselves.
That's very good, very practical. Like once, Jayadvaita Swami and I were in Spain together, and we were sleeping in the temple president's office, on the carpet. And at night he said that you should wake me up at 4 o'clock. And if I don't get up, you should nudge me. And if I still don't get up, you should pour water in my face. And whatever I say in the morning, don't listen to that. But listen to what I'm telling you now. So I think that's an example of putting yourself in a situation that will help you to overcome your weaknesses, give you support to overcome your weaknesses. Okay, last two, I guess.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, can you tell us a little bit about Gaur Govinda Maharaj and your relationship with him and his relationship with Prabhupada?
Repeat the question? Oh, can I say something about my relationship with Gaur Govinda Maharaj and his relationship with Srila Prabhupada? When I first met him, I could see that he was very advanced. But at the same time, I had some, maybe a little, I don't know, I was somewhat covered. But he was good at piercing through the covering. Like I think my most extended association came when he visited Mauritius. He was in Mauritius for about 2 weeks, and I was like with him almost all the time, and I was the senior most devotee there. But I was just starting to read the books more seriously, and so I was discussing these 5 most potent forms of devotional service. Sadhu Sangha, associating with advanced devotees. So one of them is Mathura Vas, living in Mathura Vrindavan. So somehow I was mentioning these to him. And he just stopped and he looked at me in the eye. He said, Kamsa also lived in Mathura. So I thought, yeah, that's true. That's true. And as time went on, I saw more of the similarities. But the last time I saw him was actually the day he left. But I wasn't in Mayapur when he left, because I had to deal with some emergency in America. And so I went up to one of the GBC conference rooms upstairs. I think they were discussing education. But I, sort of like took leave from the chairman and everything, and before leaving Mayapur, and he was sort of right inside the door, sitting at the table. So I saw him, and I felt like putting my head on his feet, but I hesitated for a moment, because there are like all these serious people there, and there was some controversy about Maharaj also. So I consider that hesitation to have been, well, maybe not so much, but I do consider it to be a little fault. But then in the end, I just overcame that, and I just put my head on his feet and clasped his feet. And he was very merciful and affectionate, and he rubbed my back. We looked at each other. So I felt happy in the end. And then I was not in communication for some time. And I only really heard that he had left his body maybe 2 weeks later, But yeah, that was, overall, I'm glad that, obviously, that I did that. And as far as his relationship with Srila Prabhupada, he really, I think His Holiness Niranjan Swami told a very nice story at that memorial program in Mayapur, and basically, I don't even remember exactly what the discussion was, but what Maharaj got out of it was that he was like completely sold out to Srila Prabhupada. He was completely sold out to Srila Prabhupada. He could just see it. And Niranjan Swami had a question in his mind. And Gaur Govinda Swami answered the question without Maharaj asking it. But the way he answered it, Maharaj was convinced that actually Srila Prabhupada was answering his question, that Srila Prabhupada was speaking through Gaur Govinda Swami. And then after giving that answer, Gaur Govinda Swami said that sometimes the spiritual master will speak through another devotee, but you'll know that it's your spiritual master. And Niranjan Swami said it was like he was describing what had just happened to him. So, yeah. Oh, yes.
No, I don't have Hare Krishna, Karamaj.
one of the last points you mentioned about from the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, about Krishna, about the devotee still attached to sense gratification, but dependent only on Krishna's mercy to remove that anartha or obstacle. I came to think of a point, story you related in one of your lectures that Srila Prabhupada told about the chatak bird.
Oh yes.
And I also felt that story was linked to the earlier point about Shiksha outside of ISKCON, that Prabhupada has provided everything in ISKCON. Regarding that point, you had mentioned in another lecture, which I sort of vaguely remember, that Prabhupada's mood was different, and that even if one goes back home, back to Godhead, one may not be with Prabhupada. So I wonder if you could elaborate more on that.
Well, he's made some good points here. The one about the chatak bird. Srila Prabhupada was walking in Chicago, and he came to a car called Thunderbird. And so he asked, is there such a thing as a Thunderbird? So the devotees said, well, they think it was named after an Indian chief who was named Thunderbird. And Srila Prabhupada said, but is there any such thing as a Thunderbird? And the devotees weren't aware of it, and Prabhupada said, well, we have a Thunderbird called the chatak. And the chatak will take water only from the cloud. And sometimes the cloud doesn't give water. It gives thunder and lightning. But still the chatak won't go anywhere else. And then he explained that Srila Rupa Goswami used this example that the devotee is like a chatak bird, that he'll only take mercy from Krishna. And even if Krishna doesn't give mercy, he gives thunderbolts, but still he won't go anywhere else. So he was relating that to not going outside of ISKCON. And then the point about wanting to serve Srila Prabhupada in the spiritual world, he's made the point, quoting me, that it is possible. We can't say that it's impossible. It is possible that one could, take shelter of a Vaishnava outside of ISKCON and go back to Godhead. But then you won't be, under Srila Prabhupada. There, you'll be under someone else, and so. Yeah, so if we want to serve Srila Prabhupada in the spiritual world, then we should follow his instructions in particular, and then go to him. And I would prefer that personally. All right, so thank you very much for your wise questions and comments and patience. And Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Prabhupada Anupas ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Maharaj ki jai.